Welcome, Life Sciences. Welcome to a really exciting life science lesson today. I don't want to spend too much time talking because we've got a nice surprise that we're going to give you during this lesson today. So what are we looking at? Let's just quickly recap. I'm going to go onto the board. I'm going to go straight, all right, to the section that we're going to look at. And we're starting to look at the human gaseous exchange. Now, last time we ended off with this whole concept of different organisms having different gaseous exchange, and then we ended off with the mammals, and we said that mammals are warm-blooded and they need lots and lots of oxygen, which means they need a really, really specialized system, and that's what we're going to look at today. So when I'm looking at the system that I'm going to look at, we're going to look at the mammals, right? And we're specifically going to look at how we humans, how are we going to bring oxygen in and carbon dioxide out? What does our system look like? And this is when we generally use the word, we say there are lungs. Our lungs are going to do that. They're only part of it, right? But they're going to be a big part. Okay, so first thing that you need to look at, what organs are going to be involved in bringing in air in. Now, guys, it's a very simple concept. Air needs to be brought into the system. Everything must be open. You cannot have any kind of thing in the way. Everything must be open. The air must flow, all right, nice and freely. And that's what we need to look at when we look at the structure of the lungs. As soon as we get something stuck, that's when we choke, that's when we cough, right? That's when we sneeze, right? And that's when maybe we can get sick. So we need to make sure that nothing gets in the way of our system. So we're going to start off first. When you breathe in, it's got to go through the nose. And everybody's like, why? I'm going to show you. Okay, so why must air go in through the nose? Now I'm going to draw these little scary little things. Okay, these are hairs. Now, the reason why it must go through the nose is because, guys, you're going to have all these little hairs. And why do we have hairs? We want to trap any kind of dust or anything that we don't want into our tubes. Now, remember, air, we want air in. That's it. We don't want all other kinds of nonsenses and whatnot, because as soon as we do that, then the air getting in is a problem. And if we don't get in air, then we can't breathe. That's going to have a really serious problem. So we've got little hairs, right, that are going to trap the hair. Also, what have we got in the nose? Mucus. Right, a lot of you call it snot. Yes, you are quite right. But we've got a lot of mucus. Now, if you go to one of our points, what must a gaseous exchange system be? It must be moist. Why? Because the oxygen must dissolve, all right, into a moist lining. But not only is it moist, what else does the mucus do? The mucus is also going to trap any kind of dust or any kind of foreign thing, and it's going to bring it out. So I'm going to have hairs, I'm going to have mucus, and if you notice the color here, it's red. The third thing that the nose must have is a lot of blood vessels. Now, guys, not for gaseous exchange. Gases do not exchange in your nose. Gases, all right, the blood vessels are there to heat up your blood. Say, for example, it's a really cold day. You can see I'm wearing a scarf, so it probably is quite cold. And when I breathe in the air, when I breathe it in, it's ice cold, all right? And we've got to keep a normal, constant body temperature. So as soon as I breathe in, I'm breathing in, each time I breathe in, it's half a liter, okay? I've got to make sure that that air is nice and warm. That is why I breathe through my nose, and I definitely don't breathe through my mouth. Then when I go into, all right, guys, have a look here. See those hairs again? That's them going nice and fast. They're getting all the dust out, nice mucus. These are found in the trachea. Now, the trachea is the pipe in which, all right, we are going to, all right, have a look and see. We've got quite a nice surprise for you, so stick around because you're actually going to see the real thing. Looking at the human exchange system, and obviously I don't have a human in front of me here, But we're going to look at some of the structures that make up what we call our gaseous exchange system. Sometimes we call it the respiratory system. Now, in my hand over here, I have an ox trachea, as we've said right in our introductory lesson a little bit earlier. And this trachea, we looked at the nose and how the nose, all right, helps us with breathing. And I want you to have a look at this trachea. Now, remember, when we're looking at gaseous exchange, guys, we're talking about air. And air has to move freely. And that simply means hollow tubes. Look at this, all right? It must be hollow. Now, this is my trachea. Now, if you have a look over here, you'll see, I'm going to twist. The trachea is always in the front, right by my throat. But if you have a look at the back, I want to show you over here. Look what I've got attached. And I'm going to cut it. There's the esophagus. The esophagus runs all the way down the back over here of the trachea. And that you would have looked at when you looked at your digestive system. Now, when we look at the trachea, one of the things we look at, I don't know if you can see over here, you can see that there's bumps. Now, the trachea is like a plastic straw, not a paper straw. And what do I mean by that is there's a reason why there were plastic straws, because plastic straws stay open. And that's exactly the same concept that we need with our trachea. If we have a paper straw, we're going to close it. If we're going to have something that is not reinforced, the trachea is going to close. Now, I want to show you over here. I'm going to cut a little bit. Now, have a look. I'm cutting at the back. Now, why do you think I'm cutting at the back? I'm cutting at the back, guys, very simply because I can't cut in the front. Now, I want you to show over here. If I do this, this is hard. Look here, I can't move it. This is cartilage. In the front of my trachea, I have got C-shaped cartilaginous rings. And what do? Those C-shaped, look here, I can stick my finger all the way through. They keep the trachea nice and open. But at the back, I don't have these reinforcements. Why? Because what's at the back of it, I call it a little thief. And what is the little thief? The little thief is the esophagus. Why is the esophagus a thief? Guys, what happens when you swallow? What does this esophagus do? It expands. That bolus of food goes down. So guess what it says to the trachea? Okay, I need your space. So at the back here, I've got no reinforcements so that when I swallow, look here, I don't know if you can see it, I can push into, all right, the space of the trachea. You really can't swallow and breathe at the same time, right? Because remember, your epiglottis is also closing, all right, your trachea while you're doing it. There we go. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm cutting it open. I don't want to cut too much there. Let's cut the esophagus a bit. Guys, do you see this? I lovely call it the boerewors layer. That's connective tissue. All right, this is actually areolar connective tissue. It's the most abundant connective tissue in the body. And you see here, look what I'm doing. I can cut the back, but if I want to try, I can't cut the front. Can you see there? You can see these rings. There we go. There's a layer of cartilage, there's a layer of cartilage, and there is a layer of cartilage. So the trachea, a beautiful open windpipe that is going to go all the way down to the lungs. Now the trachea, when I get to the bottom here, it's in the lungs, it's too much, I can't really get to it. The trachea is going to branch into two open tubes again called the bronchi. Well, guys, wasn't that quite awesome? Okay, it was a huge, big trachea because it was from an ox, but you could see those C-shaped cartilaginous rings so nicely. And as I said to you, you've got to remember, the air must always be able to flow through freely. As soon as something gets stuck in there, you can't breathe. Right? That means you could actually suffocate. So we want the tubes to be nice and hollow. We want them to be reinforced. And we want air to be able to move nice and freely. Okay? So we went in through the nose, right? It goes to the back of our throat, which is the pharynx. Then it travels down the front here. Remember, the front was the trachea. The esophagus was at the back. And it goes all the way down, and then it must divide. And the reason it must divide, let me go to the next one, okay, is because we have two lungs. Now, we're talking about the tubes here. So here's my trachea, and what will happen is the trachea divides into two bronchi. One bronchus, right, and two bronchi. So it must go into two because I have got two lungs. So the trachea is then going to divert. As you can see over here, there also is a little bit of reinforcement that's going to help it. So that's not going to be too bad. So what will then happen? Now it's like a tree. The bronchi have to get smaller and smaller and smaller. You want your lungs to be these balloons I'm going to show you just now. So you want these little tubes to get smaller and smaller and smaller. This is where the air needs to go because they're not going to do the work. You want them to go, and you're going to see now, into the next thing. And what we call them is bronchioles. Now I'm sure you can imagine what happens if you've got a little bit of bacteria that attacks the lining. What do you get? Bronchitis. Right, that's what bronchitis is. When bacteria attacks it, it makes a lot of mucus, and you cough and you're sick. And that is what bronchitis is. So when these little tubes, first the bronchus, then the bronchiole, when they end up, now this, guys, this is the secret of the lungs. The lungs are these little round ball-shaped, imagine like grapes. And they are hollow inside, and they are called the alveoli. And this, you see, here's the tubes. And what they're going to do is these alveoli are small and thin. The air is going to come into here, and then you see they're wrapped with blood vessels. Gaseous exchange is going to occur, and what's going to happen is that is how we're going to get all the gases to the body. Okay, I think it's time for just a small little break. We're going to be right back.